Bodybuilding has a huge issue, and I'm not sure that they can sort it out. Has bodybuilding fundamentally got a problem? Serious question, because the light engineers need to lose their job. Even the middle schoolers know the shadows can't form if they shine lights on an object from multiple angles. Without shadows, how the hell are you supposed to see contour and definition? That is a great question, but it isn't about the light engineers. It's a problem with bodybuilding. I remember a long time ago when bodybuilding used to be strictly about the physiques. Well, I kind of don't, but play along with me when it comes to this. Stages were designed around the bodybuilder's physiques. How can we present it in the best way possible, whilst of course putting on a good show? Because ultimately, when people go to watch a bodybuilding competition, they go there to watch a giant screen in the back. No, of course, they go to watch bodybuilders. They go to see the physiques that are on display. And of course, back in the day, years ago now, decades ago now, bodybuilding stages were set up to present it in that way. There was literally just a curtain in the back, perhaps maybe something slightly different, and then it would be down lighting, great lighting to make sure that the physiques were presented well enough. Of course, you did get on displays like the WBF.
He just walked out on stage. Oh, look at him. Oh, hit the deck. There's another one. They're coming at him from bullets are flying all over the place. Oh, I'm getting down. Oh, my goodness.
Which, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure if I could put a clip off, because last time, or I made a video about this like over a year ago and it got copyrighted, so... But ultimately, it was about presenting the physiques, whereas nowadays, it isn't so much about that. It's more about putting on a show to make sure that people at the event have a good experience. Which, don't get me wrong, I understand you want the people to have a good time whilst watching, but ultimately, again, they are there to watch the bodybuilders. Now, this is talked about quite a lot amongst the bodybuilding community, and in my opinion, I have a reasonably decent fix for it. I'm not sure if you'd agree with me or not, but stick around to the end because I will share it then. But first, let's go through some things. Or should I say, but first, here is a word from someone that we all know.
I would recommend to all of you, subscribe to Cal today and watch this young man keep bringing you the bangers.
Now, an issue that keeps arising in bodybuilding at the moment is that the physiques look terrible. The physiques look worse, they look washed out, they look like they're holding a lot of water, there's lack of conditioning and separation, all this stuff like that. And they wouldn't be wrong. When you look at pictures like this, it's obvious that the bodybuilding physiques aren't up to par. But then, of course, it sparks up loads of debate online, saying the physiques today are so much worse than they used to be, and the bodybuilders just don't have that drive, or the genetics are bad, or I don't freaking even know what it really is. But ultimately, that is a frigging discussion that comes up every year when the Olympia comes around. But what if I told you that it ultimately wasn't the bodybuilder's fault? Well, partly it is. Of course, if they come off, then they're not going to look the best. But a lot of it is actually up to the stage and how it's presented in itself. Now, let me use two examples for this that we've seen recently. We've seen Logan Franklin as well as Regan Grimes, one at the Olympia and one at the Mexico Pro that was after the Olympia. Both look, in my opinion, really bad. Whereas, let me show you this picture of Regan from the exact same show on the exact same day, but just at different lighting. That makes a big difference, right? I'm not saying that Regan Grimes is like Mr. Olympia tier level to the point where he could win it or anything like that, but he looked so much better than the original picture that I showed you, and that's strictly down to the lighting and stage design. Because a lot of the times nowadays, bodybuilding shows are obsessed with having a big screen. I don't ultimately know when it started. It was sometime in the 2010s, where of course they started putting up a big screen behind them to use it as presentation, to make the show look a lot better, and of course to display the sponsors. But it drowns out the look of the physique. It kind of takes away from the overall physique. If you're looking at a physique, trying to judge it especially, but also if you're trying to view it as a spectator, and there's just like a bunch of moving stuff behind them that's going to take away from the detail in the physique and make the physique not look as good as it could be, basically. And how do the shows counter that? How do the shows solve that issue that they themselves created? They just put a bunch of lights there from different angles. Of course, they have the strongest ones going down to try and make sure that they have the best down lighting and so the bodybuilders can present the best way that they can, and of course show off their physiques. But of course they have lights coming from other ways as well. There's like stage lights that move around. There's friggin' different lights from the actual venue itself, and there could be like flashlights from the phones that are present. And let's not even talk about bloody prejudging. The picture that I showed you of Logan Franklin earlier was at the prejudging of the Mr. Olympia. And think about that situation. You've got the freaking fat screen behind you. Then, of course, you've got a bunch of lights trying to make sure that you're presenting in the best way possible in an exhibition center, which is extremely well lit, for very bright lights in the ceiling. Then again, like I said, there's flashlights going off and whatnot. Like, you might as well be in bloody broad daylight. It's that freaking bad. Literally, they put fat screens behind them, which, don't get me wrong, as a viewer, okay, is kind of like interesting to look at, I guess. But then they have to subsidize that with multiple lights, making the physiques look freaking terrible. And it's not like we haven't seen a bloody alternative to this. That was this year at the Detroit Pro. This was this year at the Mexico Pro. Which one would you prefer to watch? Be serious. Bodybuilding in itself has an issue, and they need to sort something out because it's making the physiques look worse. Whereas let me compare that to a much smaller show that happened earlier this year, which a lot of people are using as like the standard of what bodybuilding shows should be, and that was the Detroit Pro. If you look at this picture of Matt Gregor and Wesley Vissers posing next to each other, it looks immaculate.
That I really appreciate about this show is the same thing that I liked last year. A plain black backdrop with good lighting. And you can see in this video that makes a significant difference to how the physiques are presented, especially on a live stream. So again, I want to take my hat off to Fuad for that, because he's the one that implemented that. And the reason he did it is because he calls the Detroit Pro the people's show.
Like in their physiques, in their presentation, we can see all the flaws. We can see all the separation, the quality, and of course, the way that they're presenting it. It's a black background. There's nothing there, and there's extremely good downlighting. That is it. That is all you need in a bodybuilding show to present the physiques in the best way possible. That's it. We don't need a fat screen, and I'm sure it was actually entertaining to watch because, again, why did the people buy the tickets? Why did the people want to go to the Detroit Pro? To watch the physiques, not to watch the bloody Avengers behind them. Now, like I said, this isn't a new critique of the Mr. Olympia. I'm sure this has been a point of concern for many people ever since maybe the screen was first implemented within the 2010s or so. And ultimately, I think it's fallen on deaf ears. There's been no changes made to it at all, apart from the odd pro show where, of course, you get something like the Detroit Pro that I showed you just then. And of course, earlier this year, I think because of the Detroit Pro, it was drummed up so much that Dan Solomon, who organizes the Mr. Olympia, said that he would be looking to maybe make some changes. Of course, it's probably too late down the timeline to be able to do it by that point because the Olympia is literally like organized. They're organizing the next year's Mr. Olympia right now. As soon as this one ends, they get on to the next one. So of course, they wouldn't have been able to make any changes. And so it does make me think that maybe next year may be different because of course the Olympia, although people thought it was going to leave Vegas, but it stayed in Vegas, it is just moving venue. So it was in Resorts World, which looks like this. I've got pictures of it because I've been there a couple of times now and it does look cool, but it is going to a different venue now. So perhaps they may be able to change the stage design because they need to make it look better in some way. Now, how would I fix this? How would I fix the issue with the stages? I wouldn't get rid of the screen. Why did the people want to go to the Detroit Pro? To watch the physiques, not to watch the bloody Avengers behind them. It drowns out the look of the physique. It kind of takes away from the overall physique.
I wouldn't get rid of the screen. A million.
Now, I know that is contradictory to what I said in this entire video, basically critiquing the screen and saying how well the Detroit Pro was and saying how great it used to be in bodybuilding back in the day. And of course, I do think that they hold a special place and they need to be continued, especially throughout the smaller pro shows that do happen over time. Now, the reason I think they should stay at those smaller pro shows is because, of course, people have gotten used to the screens and the presentation of the Olympia in the way that it is now. It's kind of like the argument of steroids, for instance. There are some people who still think that steroids shouldn't be in bodybuilding, but they've been around for like over perhaps 70 years now at this point. The experimentation of steroids, at least. Anabolic steroids weren't actually fully implemented in bodybuilding until sort of the late 1950s as such, with someone like Bill Pearl. and of course the adoption of it for many other bodybuilders in the 60s or so, with people like Arnold, Sergio Oliva, Larry Scott, and others as well, Dave Draper as well. But the reason I'm saying all this is to say we've seen the physiques now grow bigger and bigger and bigger over time, to the point where we see freaky mass monsters on stage today. We can't just go back to natural bodybuilding. It doesn't make sense. It wouldn't work, right? It would kind of lose popularity and appeal for many people. And it's kind of the same for the screen. If they got completely rid of it and just put a curtain with down lighting, it wouldn't be as interesting. So how I would fix this is to keep the screen, but to know when to turn it off, to know when to get rid of certain things. If I'm trying to watch friggin' Derek Lunsford or the open class in general, or the classic physique or whatever on stage, and there's friggin' loads of moving lights and stuff behind them, it's going to take away from the overall look. Have that in between the competition perhaps, and make sure, it's interesting to look at. But when they're on stage, get it off, turn it off, get rid of it, and make sure the lighting is impeccable, so that they're able to present their physique in the best way possible. And when it comes to the prejudging, mate, I have no idea. They're in an exhibition center. What are they going to do? Turn the lights off? Like, I don't know.